So, it has been a really busy couple of days in the world of Zelda and for Tears of the Kingdom because of the recent leaks around the art book that's meant to ship with the special edition for Tears of the Kingdom, and the fact that almost every single photo from that art book, if not every photo, managed to get out there on the internet, and people were looking at it, people were mad about it, people were discussing it. I, of course, made my own video talking about my thoughts on the leaks without spoiling them, and I will continue to not spoil them, even though whether or not that's even important, I think, has now become debatable per my last conversation, but I'm still going to continue to respect folks by not describing what's in the photos vividly or showing them. But because of all of this, like I said, it's been kind of a rocky week for Zelda and for Zelda fans. Now, to sum up my last conversation, just so those of you who haven't seen it have a little bit of context for this conversation, I spent time discussing in my last video why I actually don't think that all of the art and everything seen in those leaked photos is really much of a spoiler for Tears of the Kingdom. I mean, anyone who's looked at them probably knows, and I had a lot of people agreeing with me in the comments, and I've even seen the general conversation online really change over the course of the past few days. Initially, everyone, people online, on Twitter, on YouTube, were jumping to this concept of it's spoiling everything, it's changing what we know about the game, Nintendo's going to be pissed, it's a huge deal. And I kind of really came on to my video and I was like, these pictures are cool, but I don't really think that they're exposing any huge secrets about a game as massive as we know Tears of the Kingdom is going to be. I think people are kind of letting it get to their heads. And of course, everyone has their own unique threshold for these kinds of things, so I don't want to judge anyone who does feel like they're spoilers or who's managed to avoid them so far. All I can do is, again, say what I felt from the beginning, and that we've also now seen a lot of people start to agree with after sitting on these photos for a few days. It's not really spoiling much. It's an art book. I said this in my video, it's the same art book that everyone who gets a special edition is going to have in their hands the very day they have the game to play. So I think that Nintendo was smart and careful with what they included in that art book, knowing that some folks might even look through it before they play the game, and they will definitely look through it before they finish the game. And so why would they show you the biggest secret about, like, the end of the game in an art book, knowing people would be reading it before they finish the game? And that's why when I looked at those photos, I was like, hey, this doesn't change much, so no one really needs to worry about it. Either way, there's a whole different aspect around these leaked photos that I want to talk about today, and it's whether or not those photos, in a weird roundabout way, actually helped some people's excitement for Tears of the Kingdom. Because based on some of the things I've seen online, I think that is the case. Look, man, I am over the moon excited for Tears of the Kingdom. I've never doubted it. I've known it's going to be great. I've been excited at every new little glimpse that they've given us. But most of us are probably aware that there's been a growing conversation and a growing concern amongst a lot of people that Nintendo is holding too much back, they're keeping it too much of a secret, and there's also a big concern that maybe the game is going to feel very shallow, that it's almost going to feel like extra unfinished content from Breath of the Wild as opposed to its own true, new, genuine sequel. And that was even more crazy once the price was confirmed to be $70, because people really got more concerned. They're like, hey, I already think this game looks like DLC for Breath of the Wild. Now you're telling me it's $10 more too? And so, because of that, people have really just not been sure how they feel about the game. And so that's why when we look at what seems to be the net result from these photos leaking, quote unquote, from this art book, I feel like a lot of folks have actually started to come out and say that they're now feeling even more excited about the game simply because they've seen this art book, conceptual drawings, and all of these things in the game that, again, aren't really spoiling much. They're just showcasing things that are going to be in the game, and it's actually helping people feel like there's more to experience in the game, and they're just overall feeling more of that buzz in the air about this game simply because these photos and this leak happened. And I find that to be a curious but positive result of these photos leaking because, like I said at the beginning here, a lot of folks said, oh, Nintendo's going to be pissed. They're going to start suing people and striking videos and claiming everyone who shared them. And, like, none of that's happened. To my knowledge, maybe you know of something that I don't, but everyone I know who's made YouTube videos and posts and Nintendo Everything's article where they literally linked 50 photos, it's like all of that stuff is still up. I don't think there's any indication that Nintendo has a problem with these photos getting out there. And of course, in a roundabout way, I did mention this in my last video too, my tinfoil hat conspiracy theory starts to tell me I wonder if this was a controlled leak by Nintendo. Maybe they knew, in lieu of giving us tons of trailers and teasers and Nintendo Directs and stuff about Zelda, if they can just let this art get out there and let it be framed as a leak to get people's eyes on it in a totally different way, and people like me and many others making YouTube video conversations about it, they knew it almost becomes free marketing. You know, again, this is just following the tinfoil hat conspiracy theory route. I don't really know that that's what happened, but, you know, I think that a lot of companies and Nintendo do sometimes let controlled leaks get out there. I think that there's been plenty of circumstances around a lot of different games where that's happened. And I do think that Nintendo's been part of that. And so I just, you know, I don't know that I would put my money on this being a controlled leak by Nintendo, but I'm certainly not removing it from the table. And again, when we see other people getting more excited about the game just because these photos got out there, it kind of adds more credence to the idea that Nintendo's a smart company, and maybe they knew there would be positive buzz and positive reactions to these photos getting out there. In fact, on Twitter, I even ran my own poll. It only got a couple hundred votes. It's smaller than my normal polls, but I did run a poll that said, did the Tears of the Kingdom's art book leaks make you more or less excited for the game? And you can see the result. Overwhelmingly, almost 45% of people said more excited. And yeah, 40% of people said that they didn't look at them, and so that's fine. But of the 60% of people that looked at them, they either said it was more exciting or they had no change in their excitement. Look at how many people became less excited, 1.6%. Again, this poll is not the be-all, end-all, and it's not even a huge subset of the fans. It's only 372 votes. I usually get a lot more, and so that's okay. This one was just a small poll. But I do think it was interesting, and I just wanted to share what this poll showed me. So at the end of the day, where do we find ourselves? Well, we find ourselves 3 months away from the release of this game, just under 3 months away from the release of this game, probably going to be Nintendo's biggest game release of the year, very likely the biggest game release amongst the entire industry of the whole year, a brand new Zelda game that looks amazing, and it's also really one of the only games we know Nintendo is releasing this year, right? We've all been having these conversations and thoughts about what Nintendo is doing in 2023 after Fire Emblem comes out, after Zelda comes out. Now we know Pikmin 4 is in July, and other than a few other smatterings of some, you know, old game remastered and re-releases and some other small indie games, there's nothing. And so the back half is very open, and I've discussed what that could mean. Next-gen hardware, Metroid Prime 4, something else. I do think the back half is going to become very exciting. But we're now at the point where we're only a few months away from Tears of the Kingdom. We've seen 3 teasers and 1 full trailer for this game, right? Only 2 of these trailers actually came out after we knew the name of the game. It's really crazy when you think about it. And we know very little about the game. Here comes these leaks, all the photos of the special edition art book, and it's all very cool, and it shows us some neat things and gets our brains thinking about what this game is going to be like. It's all very exciting, but when it comes to Zelda, we don't know what else they're going to do. I think we all believe in a Nintendo Direct presentation focused on Zelda probably in April. I've said many times I have a personal desire for a Nintendo Treehouse to actually happen instead, and just show us a bunch of gameplay segments. Play for 20 or 30 minutes at a time, do 3 or 4 of those, show us very different versions of the world map, and show us some things about the game like you did in 2016 for Breath of the Wild. And I think all of that stuff would be fantastic, but we still have to wait to see if Nintendo even chooses to do that. But I do think the one thing we can say for sure is at the end of the day, these leaks that everyone was so concerned about, they sure didn't seem to hurt the game, man. Nintendo doesn't seem mad about it. No one seems less excited after looking at these photos, and those who've chosen not to look at them just hasn't seen them. So there's really not a lot of damage that was done. In fact, it only seems like it was a net positive. Whether Nintendo leaked it on purpose, whether it got out there by accident and they just decided, we don't care, these photos are out there making people think about and talk about Zelda again without Nintendo having to pay for commercials and make trailers and do a Nintendo Direct. These photos are doing all the promo and marketing and advertising for them right now on the backs of this most recent trailer a few weeks ago during the Nintendo Direct. So I find it interesting. I wanted to just talk about this one more time and just kind of put my final 2 cents in here about these leaks. You know, doubling down on what I said last time, that I don't think that they're spoiling much, and then also adding into the fact that I think that this actually helped the game, didn't hurt the game, so we'll see how it all comes together in May when the game finally releases.